the station working for you. This is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, the National Guard has joined the fight against COVID-19 at long-term care facilities. Now the call is out for others to join the effort. And if you're always looking for a good deal, our consumer reporter weighs in on the purchases you can save money on if you buy this month. Chris.
Topping our lineup, this election is showing just how divided this country is. We're looking at what this means for our future. And cancer survivors are worried about what's next for federal health care laws following the election, the role that some hope leaders play in finding a solution. And Republican women are getting a bigger voice in Congress, the impact that these new members could have, and the other women getting elected for the first time.
First at 5:30, the State Department of Health is asking for retired nurses, doctors, and other reserve healthcare workers to help out at long-term care facilities. The National Guard has already deployed to dozens of nursing homes throughout the state. Their goal is to help with testing, reporting, visitor registration, infection protocol, and other tasks. The Army National Guard says things are going well so far.
Our first few days in the facilities have been very productive. The feedback that we are getting is that our soldiers and airmen are augmenting the staffs, and they're helping the staffs with adherence to CDC guidelines for wearing their PPE. They're helping at screening at the front door. They're taking temperatures and really enabling the staff to do their jobs.
The goal is to reduce the spread of the virus within long-term care facilities. The plan is to have more than 400 soldiers to deploy to more than 500 nursing homes by the 16th of November. And nursing home deaths now make up 57% of the state's total COVID-19 deaths. 2,428 people have died in nursing homes with COVID-19, yet nursing homes still make up a small percentage, only 6% of total positive cases. Kevin.
All right, Amanda, let's start at my dad's breakfast table this morning. He had a bird's eye view. Literally, look at that. The hawk sitting on the railing there, enjoying just a great day. And it was good to relax, right? Not have to fight the wind for a while. Hopefully you've had a good brush with nature here recently. I've seen a lot of deer around. You know, once the corn's been cut down in harvest, then you got better view of all that. Can you get a better view of the setting sun? I don't think so. 5:39 is technically when the sun sets. And the clouds you see there will not lead to any rain tonight or tomorrow. We're probably dry. And by the way, we've had a 6-day dry stretch. We're dry until Tuesday. Okay, even warmer to the west, but we'll have a 1-day temperature setback. Temperatures tomorrow stay in the 60s. That's how spoiled we are. We're getting used to temperatures at 70 or above, but we'll be about 66 tomorrow. As a result of cloud cover, temperatures in the low 70s in Muncie and Shelbyville right now as we wave goodbye to the sun. Tomorrow morning, temperatures start warmer because of the cloud cover, 60 late morning. Afternoon temperatures stay in the mid-60s for the high. There are changes for Friday and the weekend, changes you'll be excited about. More on that coming up.
Pennsylvania remains the top prize among the battleground states. With 20 electoral votes at stake, both presidential campaigns are looking for a win there. Maya Rodriguez explains why it might feel like counting is taking so long.
The Keystone State, living up to its name as potentially the linchpin in who becomes America's next president.
Their processes just were never anticipating such an influx.
An influx of early absentee and mail-in ballots in numbers Pennsylvania has never dealt with before. About 2.5 million, 10 times what they had in 2016. Matthew Weil with the Elections Project at the Bipartisan Policy Center says counting all of the state's ballots will take a while.
In some of the biggest jurisdictions, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, they don't have the experience counting those quickly. And the fact that the legislature did not give them time before Election Day to count those, even knowing that this was coming, means that most likely we're not going to have great results until Friday.
Among the areas to watch in Pennsylvania, the suburban counties around the state's two biggest cities, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. That includes Bucks County, just north of Philadelphia.
Yeah, counting the ballots is again really kind of an uncertain science for us.
And those mail-in ballots also take longer to count.
There are two envelopes we have to open, the outside envelope and the secrecy envelope. So it's really double the work.
Here in Bucks County, they sent out about 200,000 mail-in ballots. That's 10 times the number they sent out in 2016. And here, like everywhere else in Pennsylvania, if a ballot is postmarked on Election Day, it can still be counted if it's received by Friday. However, election officials are preparing for the possibility of a legal challenge involving those ballots received after Election Day.
We do know that there's very likely to be a legal challenge to that, claiming that that's not, constitutional. So we are going to start segregating any mail we get tomorrow.
In the end, though, officials in Pennsylvania hope the 2020 election keeps voters confident in the election system.
The people you see here working, these are not political appointees. They've committed themselves to giving people a fair, accurate, safe election.
One that doesn't appear to be over just yet. In Bucks County, Pennsylvania, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Maya, thank you. And next on our lineup, this election is showing just how divided this country is, and we're taking a look at what that means for our future. There was no red wave or blue wave last night. Instead, today, it became even more apparent just how divided the country is across state, political, and ideological lines. Chris Conte looks at what that means for the future of the great experiment we call the United States.
Well, the country went to sleep last night not knowing who the next president would be.
This is really tight. That race is too close to call. It's a divided country. It's a close election.
America opened its eyes Wednesday morning to a divided nation.
There's no blue wave or red wave. It's just two ideological silos that everyone's kind of hanging out in.
As a political historian, Tom Whalen offered a glimpse into how we got here.
Everything is politicized down to the clothes we wear, how we speak, you name it. And it's not just politics anymore, but it's seeped down into our culture.
The divide couldn't have been more pronounced on issues like racial inequality, the pandemic, and health care. Democrats went for Joe Biden in droves there. On the Republican side, the number one most important issue, the economy, followed by crime and safety. Across the East, an overwhelming majority of voters favored Joe Biden. In the Midwest and South, the divide was less pronounced and favored President Trump, while Biden was more favorable across the West.
We're really seeing this tension play itself out in this election, but also in who governs.
Henry Fernandez studies African-American polling trends. One of the biggest trends he saw this year, an overwhelming majority of non-white voters casting ballots for Democrats.
We're not really having a debate about issues. We're having a debate about whether or not America will continue with this demographic change.
Beyond the rural and urban geographic divisions, Fernandez doesn't see a great moment of unity until Americans make conscious efforts to reach outside their comfort zone.
We can't just go to Thanksgiving dinner and make friends again across these divides. Instead, we have to be purposeful. We have to find and build specific places where we come together, learn to trust each other, and build relationships.
It's going to make it very hard for whoever is going to be president for the next 4 years to govern.
So much uncertainty amid so much division, with so much at stake. I'm Chris Conte.
All right, Chris, thank you. Now, ahead in our lineup, cancer survivors are worried about what's next for federal health care laws following the election, the role that some hope leaders play in finding a solution. Cities across the country have been putting caps on the fees that food delivery apps charge amid the pandemic. Chicago is a city that doesn't have a cap, but it does have a recently added rule that those apps, they have to disclose to you all the fees.
And when you're using these services, Uber Eats, for example, will show you 49 cents delivery. Grubhub makes it often seem like you're getting free delivery. And it may be 49 cents for you plus their service charge, which they tack on at the end. But for the restaurants that you're supporting, the fees are much, much larger.
Consumers Checkbook did an investigation into the true cost of food delivery apps. It placed orders with 8 Chicago restaurants. Now combined, it found with DoorDash, there were more than $200 in fees that you don't see. For Grubhub, it was $160, and Uber Eats, $100. On average, across all the orders, Consumers Checkbook estimates that these 3 apps took $32 of the $85 food bill. That's around 38%.
These apps have become so market dominant that a lot of restaurants feel like they don't have the choice but to participate. And even if a restaurant offers its own delivery system and drivers, if the order is placed through the app, they still have to pay big commissions and fees to the app company.
Now, you can get around this by ordering directly from the restaurant. Consumers Checkbook found when you Google a restaurant, you may get a link that lets you place your order through an app, even if the restaurant has its own website ordering system. Now, also Grubhub set up its own phone numbers for restaurants that lets you speak with someone at the restaurant, but it also lets Grubhub charge them a phone order commission. So you really want to make sure you do get the restaurant's actual number directly from their website. Now, DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats tell Consumers Checkbook that they have increased restaurants' business before and during the pandemic, and they also say that they've provided hundreds of millions in temporary reduced, waived, or deferred commissions. Now, an experimental Alzheimer's drug may be on track for FDA approval. It would be the first drug in decades approved to slow the disease. The drug maker revived plans to seek approval last year after a new analysis of 2 studies. The FDA agreed that those studies showed evidence that the drug works. A final decision on approval is due in March. Now, kids with better mental health use less screen time. There's a Canadian study that found adolescents, especially girls, fare better if they spend more time doing extracurricular activities and less than 2 hours with screens after school. Both factors led to higher levels of satisfaction and lower levels of anxiety and depression.
Black Friday is a moving target this year, definitely not just the day after Thanksgiving due to the pandemic. Some sales even start today. So what should you buy in November and what should you wait to purchase? Consumer reporter John Matarese gives his best advice to Jimmy Rhodes and our friends at the Scripps Show, the list so you don't waste your money.
So we're running down what to buy in November, Pandemic Edition. For starters, adjust your plans because Black Friday is spreading out.
Walmart is actually throwing 3 Black Friday sales. It starts on November 4th. They're going to roll out some items. November 11th, they're going to roll out the big electronics that everybody loves. And then the day after Thanksgiving, they'll have a more traditional Black Friday with clothing, gifts, and other merchandise.
Other big national retailers like Bed Bath & Beyond and Best Buy will have specific deals starting on different dates. And Target will be closed on Thanksgiving, but will offer its Black Friday pricing for the entire month of November. Why?
To avoid big crowds in the store all at once and to avoid their websites crashing.
But some things aren't changing. For instance, this stretched out Black Friday is still one of the best times of the year to buy big TVs.
This is the time to buy that big TV you've been waiting on all pandemic year. We're talking 65 and 75-inch TVs on deep markdown. We'll say the lowest prices we've ever seen on 70-inch HD TVs, including 4K and 8K models. So if you've been holding out for that large screen TV, we're thinking mid to late November will be your best time to buy it.
And here's one that's been causing a lot of frustration, but you might finally get some great deals on laptops.
There's been laptop shortages all year because of online learning. Laptops are now coming back into stock. We're thinking late November is a great time to purchase a laptop as well. But with shortages all year long, don't expect quite the selection of items that we've seen in years past. There may be fewer laptops, fewer Chromebooks at that low price, so don't think you'll have all the models to choose from that you've had in the past.
Finally, how about some items to wait on?
According to DealNews.com, winter clothing will get marked down starting around Black Friday. Jewelry goes on sale in December for Christmas. And when it comes to exercise equipment, the lowest prices on treadmills and other pieces of equipment are in January, not in November or December.
And if you can wait,
typically with toys, prices get lower closer to Christmas because stores don't want to be stuck with them after Christmas.
You just have to be willing to risk a reduction in inventory. What to buy in November is at the top of the list.
And who knew it would seem reasonable to buy a lawnmower in November? Certainly, I heard the roar of the engine in my neighborhood today, and that's not surprising with temperatures as warm as this. 76 up in Delaware County. Muncie reporting one of the warmer temperatures in central Indiana today. Will be that warm again within the 7-day forecast. Can't take my eyes off of this view you see on the horizon there. The glow after the setting sun. The clouds around will keep our temperatures a little warmer tonight. Can't get more consistent than that from Kokomo all the way down to Bloomington through Indianapolis. South winds Temperatures in the upper 60s for now. School bus rolls into the neighborhood tomorrow with a 52-degree temperature. That's the way we start the day. We just don't warm up as much. We start warmer, but we end a little cooler. 66 the afternoon temperature with clouds dominating. Here's your hourly temperature forecast by the time we get to between 11 and 1. That's when we make our move into the 60s. We'll stay around 66 for that afternoon high. The wind out of the southwest, again, 10 to 20 miles per hour. And temperatures around the region all in the upper 60s. As I mentioned, changes are Friday into the weekend. I think you'll like what you see in the 7-day planner coming up.
There is a record voter turnout this election. The nonpartisan U.S. Elections Project says preliminary estimates show some 160 million votes were cast. That is nearly 67% of eligible voters.
Americans no longer take their vote or their democracy for granted. This was a real wake-up call. This election. People now don't say in a cynical way, oh, all politicians are alike. The parties are all alike. It doesn't matter if I vote, because they know that's not true.
4 years ago, just under 139 million people voted. The 2020 election is the highest turnout rate since 1900. That is according to the U.S. Elections Project. Nearly 74% of eligible voters cast ballots then. Now, the future of healthcare impacted the votes of people across the country, and Alexa Liacco is with a family that is wondering just how the election results will affect their medical costs.
A little over 3 years ago, I walked into a doctor's office with a nagging cough and walked out with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, and everything changed for me all at once.
Between chemo,
I lost all my hair,
radiation,
some days I wouldn't be able to get out of bed,
surgeries, and 2 hospitalizations.
It was 6 months of misery.
The bills piled up.
I think it was near $1 million.
She says thankfully her insurance through the Affordable Care Act saved her in more ways than one.
I've been self-employed off and on for over a decade. I used to have junk insurance, and if I still had that insurance today, I would be bankrupt or dead.
But she's worried this level of insurance coverage won't last.
Chair will count for a quorum.
The day after my first chemotherapy was when Republicans in the House voted to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, which was keeping me alive.
As talks of repealing the ACA gained ground, Laura moved hundreds of miles away from family to live in Colorado.
Because Colorado has pretty good state-level protections, but nobody should have to live like this. Nobody should have to be a healthcare refugee in their own country just to get care.
Laura is now terrified the federal healthcare laws she sees as helpful could be changed or removed with the presidential election and new Supreme Court justice.
My life is in the balance, but millions of Americans are in the balance too.
Laura is worried those with pre-existing conditions will not get the care they need at a price they can afford. But she's also worried the individual mandate for health insurance will be taken away. With fewer healthy people paying into the healthcare system, the system cannot help cover costs for people who are sick.
When you take away that piece, my fear is that the rest of the Affordable Care Act will crumble because we won't be able to sort of sustain or afford it in its totality.
Michelle Leake is the president of the Colorado Health Institute. Her organization has been looking at the future of American healthcare, a future she says is unclear.
At issue, I think, and we see this play out over and over again, is your belief in whether or not healthcare is a right.
Leake hopes whatever plan the nation moves forward with will make sure the families living paycheck to paycheck won't be forgotten.
I don't even know how many people will die if they succeed in destroying the Affordable Care Act.
Struggle is something all Americans have endured this year. This cancer survivor is just hoping the election will bring a confirmation that her health is valued.
In a pandemic, it's more clear than ever that we're all in this together, and we need candidates and elected officials that work for the greater good.
And for a better future, Laura hopes she will live to see. I'm Alexa Liacco.
Alexa, thank you. And finally in our lineup, Republican women are getting a bigger voice in Congress. The impact that these new members could have, and we're taking a look at some of the other women getting elected for the first time. One trend we're seeing, not just more women entering the freshman class, but Republican women in particular. This year, experts say that the GOP made large strides in bringing in female candidates.
Republican women will come back to where they were before the 2018 election. They actually lost ground in 2018, went from 23 to 13. We'll be exceeding that number. We may, in fact, see a record number of Republican women in the House overall.
Now, there are several groups that are recruiting and encouraging Republican women to run, including political action committees. Now, women of color are also making strides in Congress. Cori Bush from Missouri was just elected. She is the first black woman elected to represent Missouri in Congress. Now, regardless of what side of the aisle or what background they're from, experts say there is a need of all types of women to hold office.
And having those women's voices at the table when decisions are being made, when priorities are being set, is the reason why we talk about the value and the importance of having women overall.
And overall, there are 127 women in Congress. Only 48 of them are women of color. Now, if it hasn't happened already from your kids, maybe your grandkids, let's face it, probably will. Those dicey, difficult questions about the election or candidates.
A lot of times parents worry that approaching these sensitive topics can somehow be unhelpful or maybe amplify the problem, but the opposite is true.
Tomorrow, the advice from experts that is different this year.
Average temperatures in the upper 50s, but as you know, we've raised the bar, so we're well above that and will be until the middle of next week. We'll talk about that change ahead during the next half hour. That's all for the news at 5:30.